What's going on, movie fans? My name is Michael Weer. I love talking about movies, and we have made it to the last day of 2024. And as we look ahead to the future, as we get ready to celebrate New Year's, well, it's time to take a look at my top 10 most anticipated movies of 2025. This is a fun list I like to put together at the beginning of every year. And of course, after I've watched all of these movies throughout the year, I will do a full ranked list and find out where exactly my anticipation led, whether it was I'm so excited for these movies and so many of them turned out to be bad, or a mixed bag. It's usually more of the mixed bag, but just like all of my other lists that I do on this channel, this isn't just about my list, it's also about yours. So if you've looked ahead into your crystal ball, looked ahead into the future of 2025 and said, you know what, I've got 10 movies that I'm most excited for in the year 2025, well, throw those in the comment section down below because I'd love to know what you guys are most looking forward to. Maybe it's something that's not on my radar, maybe I don't have it written down in front of me here, and so I didn't know it was coming out. So let me know in the comment section. But for now, it's time to talk about my top 10 most anticipated movies of 2025. Coming in at number 10, guys, we have The Conjuring Last Rites. This is the final film in the Conjuring series that pertains to Ed and Lorraine Warren, at least played by both Vera Farmiga and Patrick Wilson, because they both had this big send-off when they finished filming. They said this has been an incredible journey. We're moving on from these characters now. So will The Conjuring come back in some way, spin-offs, or maybe a recast of Ed and Lorraine Warren? It is possible, but this is the last showing for at least Patrick Wilson and Vera Farmiga as Ed and Lorraine Warren, who are ghost hunters, paranormal activity explorers, and that gets me excited because I feel like they're going to put as much as they can into this one. Now, have all the Conjuring franchise movies been good? No, there have been some duds, but the Conjuring films themselves, the Conjuring 1, 2, and 3, I think have all been pretty solid, and I think they've also gone down in quality each time, which is why I'm excited for this one. I'm looking forward to it, but it's at number 10 because 1 was the best, then 2, then 3, and I'm just hoping they really give it a good push for part 4, but we'll see. The Conjuring Last Rites comes out in September of 2025. I will be there on opening weekend. Are you guys excited about it? At number 9, guys, we have a movie that I never thought we'd get a sequel to. The first movie is an absolute classic in my house. Me, my wife, my kids, we absolutely love watching it, and the sequel is called Freakier Friday. Freakier Friday is a follow-up, of course, to Freaky Friday, which starred Jamie Lee Curtis and Lindsay Lohan and Chad Michael Murray, and I believe all 3 of them are coming back for this film. Lindsay Lohan has, of course, had a resurgence into her career, coming back into the spotlight after getting some things taken care of, and it's been fun to watch her in some movies, although she's pretty much been in like Netflix-adjacent Hallmark films, but it's cool to see her coming back to something that I love so much. Lindsay Lohan has made a ton of movies in the past. Some of them are some of my favorites, like Mean Girls right back there on that poster, and of course Jamie Lee Curtis brings it every single time, and I'm hoping we get Chad Michael Murray because he just doesn't do enough. So there's a lot going for me into this film. I'm hoping it's a family-friendly film that I can take my kids to because they really love the first movie, so I'd love to take the whole family to see Freakier Friday in 2025. At number 8, guys, we have a film from Edgar Wright coming out, and Edgar Wright is one of those directors that I feel like I'm split down the middle on for his films. I really love Hot Fuzz. It's a very fun action comedy film, but then he's got movies like Baby Driver where I feel like he had a great premise, a great cast, and then it all sort of falls apart in the end. And so I feel like I'm split down the middle for Edgar Wright. But at number 8, we have The Running Man, and The Running Man stars Glenn Powell. This is, of course, a remake to the 1987 classic The Running Man, starring Arnold Schwarzenegger and Jesse Ventura. I don't know much about the plot of this new film. I don't know if it's going to be a shot-for-shot remake, if they're going to add anything new into here, but just the fact that we're getting a new Running Man film sort of updated for today's audience from Edgar Wright kind of gives me a really fun sense that this movie's going to have a sense of enjoyability to it, while also giving us a star like Glenn Powell, who's really just risen to the top and shown that he has the acting chops. Last year we had him in Twisters, and that was a fun time. He was also in a movie called Hitman, and I feel like his style of acting is really going to play into Edgar Wright's. So we're getting a Running Man remake, and I'm looking forward to it. At number 7, from the director of Parasite, we have the film Mickey 17. Mickey 17 stars Robert Pattinson as a clone. Essentially, this film is shot in a futuristic world where you have a clone that's made to go do jobs where humans can't necessarily go because it's too dangerous. So they just make these disposable clones. If one dies, they replace it with the next one. Well, when it gets to the 17th version of this clone named Mickey, Well, he doesn't want to die, and so he wants to live and he wants to fight to live. Looks like a fun sci-fi film with a little bit of, I don't even know what to say for the flavor of this film because it's Robert Pattinson doing a funny voice throughout, but I have faith that this movie is going to be good. It was supposed to release in 2024. It got pushed to 2025, maybe for reshoots. I don't really know. This, again, is the most anticipated list. So these are the movies I'm looking forward to. And sometimes I look at just the director and the actor and I say, that's enough. And I feel like that's where this and The Running Man were, because they both are sort of sci-fi futuristic films, which isn't always my cup of tea. But just the idea that they've got great directors behind them, great actors in them, I'm going to give my anticipation to those. So Mickey 17 is number 7. At number 6, guys, we have a horror sequel from Scott Derrickson, and it is The Black Phone 2. Now, The Black Phone was a really fun horror movie. It starred Ethan Hawke as a serial killer known only as The Grabber, and he would grab kids off the street, take them to his basement, lock them down there, play these psychological games with them, and there would be a black phone on the wall of this basement, and when it would ring and the victim would pick up the phone, it would be previous victims who have already been killed by the grabber. And so there was a supernatural edge to that movie. I thought there was a lot going for it. If you haven't seen it, I highly recommend that you check it out. But I don't know where they're going to go with this sequel, so I'm very intrigued. I have a lot of anticipation for it because I believe Scott Derrickson is a great horror director. I believe Ethan Hawke is a great actor, and he's coming back for this. I won't spoil things, but if you've seen the movie, I just don't know if it's going to be a prequel where they talk about the grabber even more, or if this is going to go even further into the supernatural element of these films with a direct sequel to The Black Phone. So I don't know where they're going with it. There's not an official synopsis out yet. There's not even a trailer out yet, like most of these films. But just based on what I've seen so far, I'm excited for The Black Phone 2. At number 5 is another sequel. This time we are getting Mortal Kombat 2. And this is, of course, a sequel follow-up to Mortal Kombat, which came out a few years ago. That movie came out during the pandemic, so it didn't do a great job in theaters. They also did a day-and-date release where they released it immediately on HBO Max. So I think that really stunted us getting a sequel right away. There were some issues with that movie. I'm not going to sit here and pretend it was a perfect Mortal Kombat film. I personally didn't like that the mark of Mortal Kombat could be taken from someone and only those people could have powers unlocked. I didn't love some of the new characters that they introduced, but if you're going for all-around Mortal Kombat flavor, you can't deny that the movie had some excellent action scenes in it. It had some incredible brutality in it, and now we are getting a sequel where they're bringing in Karl Urban as Johnny Cage, and that gets me all kinds of excited because I think Karl Urban's a great actor. They're putting him in this iconic Mortal Kombat role, and I really hope in this film they give us the tournament that we all want, because we didn't really get a tournament last time. People were sort of gaining their powers, understanding their powers, and then the bad guys were like, we're breaking the rules, we're coming in, and then the good guys sort of beat them all. But I want to see an actual tournament, so I hope that's what we get. We'll see. I have a lot of faith in this movie because I'm a huge Mortal Kombat fan, but weirdly enough, I'm a fan of the movies more than I am the game. I've played the games, they're fun, but I get kind of bored with them after a while. But the movies I've always found to be enjoyable. Sometimes some are better than others, but I've always enjoyed them. So I'm hoping Mortal Kombat 2 is a good time, and I'm looking forward to it. At number 4, guys, we have a zombie apocalypse film, and that, of course, would be 28 Years Later. This is, of course, the follow-up to both 28 Days Later and 28 Weeks Later. 28 Days Later starred Cillian Murphy. He recently won an Oscar for Oppenheimer, and everybody was like, what is his next move going to be? And it was to return to a classic zombie franchise. Now, I've seen 28 Days Later and 28 Weeks Later. I enjoy both of those movies, but I am really looking forward to what they can do in 28 Years Later, because now you're living in a zombie apocalypse world where it's been going on for 28 years. Like in those first couple of movies, you still had people figuring things out. It's 28 days, 28 weeks. Well, now we're at 28 years. So people have really had to try and conform to staying away from zombies. They've had to come up with unique things. And I think looking at a zombie universe that is so far detached from the opening moments that we saw in those first two films could be a really fun time. Package that with the fact that we're getting Cillian Murphy while he's on his high right now. I really hope it's a fun time. The trailer just released the other day and it looks great as well. So I can't wait for 28 years later. At number 3, I'm glad I recorded this after the trailer dropped because this was a few notches lower until the trailer came out, and it is Superman. This is James Gunn's first big entry into the new DCU. This is the kickoff to James Gunn's DC universe, the answer to what Marvel has been doing so well for so long. DC has finally started to put things together, and we're getting Superman to kick it all off. Now, we got the trailer the other day. I didn't do a trailer breakdown. I'll just say that it looks beautiful. That is my number one thing about this movie, is everything in the trailer looks gorgeous. And if it looks that good on my phone, then I'm really hoping on the big screen it looks incredible. I was a big skeptic of seeing Krypto show up in this film, but when he shows up in that trailer, I was completely won over. He hands his cape over to the dog. The dog grabs his cape and starts to take him to the Fortress of Solitude. That's such a beautiful moment in that trailer. And there were moments like that throughout, like Superman swooping in, saving that little girl. That was such a classic, iconic Superman moment. You also have Nicholas Hoult in this film as Lex Luthor, and he looks great. That moment where he's sitting there with the revolver. Oh, is that a kryptonite bullet in there? What's going on? I don't know, but it looks fun. I did think that the trailer had a bit much in it with the Green Lantern Corps and then Hawkgirl, and then looked like a giant kaiju at one point, but we got to get a little bit of that, right? It's 2025, so we need a little bit of everything mixed in. I just hope they don't overdo it. I always felt like that was the biggest issue with the previous DC universes. They couldn't just focus on one person. Like Marvel at least started their first phase or two with just focusing on one or maybe two main characters per movie, versus DC came out the gate with like, here's all the heroes. You want them all, right? And it was like, that's great, but we'd like to watch one individual story, maybe put two people in, but they just constantly pack too much into it. And while I love most of the DCEU Zack Snyder verse, I think the stuff that's not Zack Snyder didn't work as well for me because they were just packing in too much and moving too fast. I'm hoping James Gunn and DC has learned from that, and that we get this awesome Superman film that we can all enjoy, we can all say good things about. It's going to be the highlight of my summer, at least that's what I'm hoping for. So Superman comes out in July of 2025. Are you looking forward to it as much as I am? Now at number 2, I'm putting a lot on the line here, putting it this high up on my most anticipated list. Comes out in November of 2025, and it is Predator Badlands. Now, we don't have a synopsis for this. We don't have a trailer for this. We don't even have a poster for this. Whatever I use for a poster, that's not official. It's just what somebody has created online. Predator Badlands is another entry into the Predator universe, and they're doing again what they did with Prey, where they just have a one-off story where a predator comes to Earth and tries to take out what they think is the most badass person on the planet to prove that they're superior. Of course, that didn't work out very well in Prey, and it of course did not work out in the original Predator film with Arnold. I love that film. It's one of my favorite movies of all time, and the Predator franchise has been a bit spotty back and forth. I'm not the biggest fan of Part 2. I loved Predators. I thought that movie was really well done, taking the humans, bringing them to another planet to fight all these different kinds of predators. That all worked for me. Then The Predator came out. Was not the biggest fan of that, but they reignited my love for the franchise with Prey, and I'm hoping that's what we get with Predator Badlands. Just another badass one-off story of a predator coming to Earth and trying to wreck shop, and the humans, or whoever it goes against, having the upper hand. Or who knows, maybe this time the Predator will just show why they're so dominant. Maybe it'd be good to have a movie like that, like have a Predator that will not be beaten. Maybe that's the best way to go. I don't know. But that said, I'm looking forward to Predator Badlands. It comes out in November of 25. Just fingers crossed that it's another great entry into such a fun franchise. And that'll lead me to my final entry on this list, the number 1 most anticipated movies of 2025. This is the movie that I am most looking forward to the entire year of 2025. When this movie is done coming out and I've seen it in theaters, I don't know if I'll be as excited for the rest of the year. And the movie is Mission Impossible: The Final Reckoning. This is, of course, the 8th entry into the Mission Impossible franchise with Tom Cruise at the helm. Of course, in the last film, Dead Reckoning Part 1, which now they've just dropped the Part 1 and it's just Dead Reckoning, you had Ethan Hunt on the run from this AI, which wasn't my favorite storyline in the series, but they still found a way to make it extremely fun. They still found a way to make it compelling, and they found a way to bring back all of the characters that we really enjoyed in this franchise and give us a little bit more out of them. I don't know exactly where they're going with the final final reckoning. To me, final sounds like final. Final sounds like Tom Cruise's last outing as Ethan Hunt. And if that's the case, are they going to do what James Bond took so many movies to do, and that is kill their main character? Listen, I love a dark ending, so if Ethan Hunt has to sacrifice himself for the greater good at the end of the 8th movie in such a great franchise, I'll actually be pretty happy about that, as long as it's done well. And I know Tom Cruise has said he wants Glenn Powell to sort of take over when he's done with these Mission Impossible films, and I think that's really cool because I think Glenn Powell has that going on. But for the moment, we are getting at least one more film with Tom Cruise as Ethan Hunt in Mission Impossible: The Final Reckoning. I can't wait for it, guys. It is my most anticipated movie of 2025. I will be seated day one. Might even be a movie I see multiple times in the theater, depending on how much I like it. Putting a lot of anticipation into this one. But with all that said, that's my top 10 most anticipated movies of 2025 list. Guys, have you come up with a list yet? If you have, like I said at the beginning of this video, throw it down in the comment section down below, because I'd love to know what you guys think, what you're looking forward to. Maybe there's something on my list that now you're very excited for. I'd love to hear about that as well. If nothing else, it's going to be so much fun to talk movies with all of you in 2025. So Happy New Year to everybody. I'm looking forward to 2025 in general, but I'm very much so looking forward to the movies we talked about on this list. And with all that said, thanks for watching this video. If you liked it, hit the like button because it helps the video, it helps the channel, and it helps me right here. Thanks for watching. I'll see you next time. All right, guys, we got to the end of my top 10 most anticipated movies of 2025. This is always a fun list to put together because I feel like it's the first time I'm actually looking through the upcoming year. I'm picking out movies. I end up getting about 15 to 20, and then I have to whittle it down from there. And these are the 10 that I came up with this year. I'm hoping they don't disappoint me. Hey, guys, I was editing this video, and I realized that there's one movie I left off this list that, if it is going to release in 25, is my #1 most anticipated movie, even more so than Mission Impossible. And that would be if Paramount Pictures gets its stuff together and actually releases a Sleepy Hollow film. As you can see behind me, I got the map for Sleepy Hollow right there. I'm a huge fan of Sleepy Hollow. It's my favorite ghost story. It's my favorite American ghost story. I want the Sleepy Hollow movie more than anything else. And I know they've been talking about writing it since 2022, so I'm ready for it. So if sometime in 25 they're like, oh yeah, it's releasing at the end of the year, that's my most anticipated movie. I'm just letting you know now, because at the end of this year, if it had come out, I'm going to put it on that list and rank it with everything else. So maybe there'll be 11 most anticipated. That's all I got. Back to the video. And also on another note, I know that I left off some movies that were on last year's list, like Ballerina from last year, Shelby Oaks from last year. I just didn't want to put movies that I've constantly put on this list and keep getting bumped off for different reasons. So if those movies come out, I am looking forward to them. But for me this year, it's these 10 movies. These 10 movies are supposed to come out in 25. I hope they're a good time. I guess we'll find out together. With all that said, if you want to check out any of the other content on my channel, well, I've been doing a ton of best and worst lists for the end of 2024, and you can check all those out right there. And I've got all of my 2024 movie reviews right there.